Very good. Okay, welcome everybody. All right, let's go ahead and get this party started here. Once again, this is actually going to be cool because I haven't gone over this specific content this way. And so I want to bring some cool stuff for you this year. And let's go ahead and get into the actual training. I'm going to show you. Here's the tactics that we use internally within Canopy Management for increasing conversion rate. Here are some specific examples that you can take away and hopefully implement yourself. And of course, I'm going to give you the option as natural. You know, this is going to be sponsored by Canopy Management, my own agency that I co-founded. And so certainly if this all seemed overwhelming to you, or if you've got a big catalog, we certainly welcome the conversation to see if it's a good fit. So let's go ahead and get things started here. Let me go ahead and share my screen. And then what I'm going to ask is in the chat, am I sharing my screen? Is the cover slide, the title here, actually showing now? And AJ, if you want to give me, I'm not going to pay attention. I'm going to intentionally ignore chat. So I'm going to have AJ who's going to chime in if there's an urgent matter that I need to know about. So appreciate you being here. Thank you so much.
You're good to go.
All right. I'm going to assume everything's showing here and my audio is good. So let's go ahead and get started here. So what are we covering now that we've got everybody in the room in attendance? I'm going to try to make this fast. In other words, I want to try to get through this in under an hour. And any of you who have actually followed me before know that I try to put in a lot of examples and a lot more specifics, sometimes a little more of a deep dive. And it can go longer than an hour or so. Yes, of course, there is going to be a replay, but you know, technology is what it is. We'll try to get that out in the next few days. The secret that I'm talking about, the three secrets actually that I'm talking about, are going to produce more revenue for you, a higher increase in conversion rate. This is critical, especially this year, and I'll tell you why in just a moment here. But what I'm talking about here is the secret to unlocking 38% more sales in your Amazon products without giveaways, spending more on PPC. Those of you who have been following me for the years know that I'm a big proponent of PPC, but this year I've got a different message for you. In addition to PPC, don't get me wrong, PPC works awesome, but you've got to get some foundational stuff out of the way first. Otherwise, you're going to get crushed by your competition. I'm in the business of making sure that my clients and my students get a competitive advantage. So I'm glad you're here because this is what you're going to get. Now, let's go ahead and jump in one more thing. Okay, so here's the three that we're talking about today, right? Quick summary, color choice. All right, specifically color choice. Now, you've probably seen some of my other webinars or videos where I go into a number of different things, but I want to focus today specifically on color choice and how it produces the traffic that you need first in your product listing before you can expect to actually get any conversion rate. I want you to stand out from your competition so that you get noticed, so that you get to click to your product listing, so that you ultimately get that stronger consideration from a shopper to say, this is the product right for me. So stick with me. I'm going to show you how to do that. Second thing is going to be hooking the shopper to dramatically increase your conversion rate. You've got to pull that shopper in. You've got to tell them what's in it for me if I buy your product. If you're going out there and simply just copying what your competitors are doing, you are failing to beat your competition. You're getting mixed in. You probably got lukewarm sales. Your conversion rates are probably inconsistent. I want to help you correct that again today as well. And then third is going to be the right split testing. Now, if you are familiar with split testing, there's some off Amazon split testing. It can work, you know, in some cases, but I'm going to be talking about primarily Amazon experiments split testing, in which case you've got to have brand registry. If you don't have brand registry, do me a favor in the chat. Tell me if you put a 1 if you've got brand registry, put a 0 if you do not. I'm just kind of curious where people are lying here as far as that. Well, not lying, but where people are as far as their brand registry. So do me a favor in the chat, give me some feedback here. Let me know what's going on. Let me know. And it's okay if you don't have brand registry. I might chastise you a little bit for it, but all right. Okay. So a number of you are, okay. Very cool. Very cool. Okay, so it's about a mix. So probably about 2/3 of you have got brand registry. Some have been waiting for it. It shouldn't be that long of a process anymore. Most of the time, it should be less than 3 weeks, and you should be live and ready to go, assuming you've got things like the trademark applied for. Yes. Probably the bigger challenge usually is, can I even get my product shipped to me? Right? Can I even deliver in time? But I'm going to tell you is the Amazon Experiments is a native split testing option for your main image, for your title, and for your A+ content. And if you're not currently doing split testing, I'm going to be all over you, because frankly, that is one of the greatest ways to increase your conversion rate of your product across Amazon. No question. And you should be doing it year round. You shouldn't be like, oh, I'm going to do it once and stop. No, continually do it, continually learn. Every 4 weeks, just put it on a cycle, put it on a schedule. This is something that should be part of your regular cadence in your product business. All right. So what I want you to do, I want you to take away the training that I get through today. Yes, I will get to the training, and you can take screenshots and you can watch the replay and all that kind of stuff. But this is what I expect that you're going to be able to take away from this, is 3 specific tactics that you can implement yourself, or if you want, you can have my team do it. Of course, I'd love to see you here, to achieve increased visibility, increased engagement, increased conversion rate, reduced ad costs, translation, reduced ACoS, right? Increased profitability, okay? I'm pretty sure that most of you want these things, yeah? So let's get to it. Now, some of you, obviously, depending on what our marketing was, some of you may not are familiar with me at all, okay? That's cool. Welcome, glad to meet you. I hope to meet you in person someday. Post-COVID and all the, when the conventions and everything that are railing back up again, I'm usually speaking at most of the big conventions. So please look me up if you attend any one of those. My name, of course, is Brian Johnson. I go by Brian R. Johnson, so that there's not any confusion with rock stars and actors and that kind of stuff. But my claim to fame, I've been in the e-commerce business for about 14 years. I've been in Amazon for about 7 years. And in this time, I've had the privilege, and it is a privilege, to have helped over 20,000 brands sell over $1 billion, yeah, that's with a B, on Amazon through advertising, conversion rate optimization, just increasing sales. So I think that it's fair to say that I've got a track record where I've already demonstrated my capabilities. So hopefully you get just as much value out of everything that I'm teaching today. For those of you who have been around and seen some of these, you may recall I rolled out the first Amazon advertising tool called PPC Scope back in, wow, what was that, 2015, 2016? Man, it's a long time ago. Sponsored Products Academy, the first professional training course that's out there, version 1, 2, and 3. Some of you, of course, are students of that. Awesome. And of course, I am a co-founder for the Done For You Amazon brand marketing and advertising agency, Canopy Management. And we've had a phenomenal few years. We've got some fantastic people who work on our team, very creative, very smart, very collaborative. And so we work very well together. We've got some awesome processes down. And, you can see the stats right there. Take it as you wish, and you can ask me questions later on, but let's go ahead and keep moving forward, okay? Out of curiosity, do me a favor. In the chat, again, I'm going to ask again, in the chat. I want to do this all throughout the whole thing, but if you've never heard of me, if you've got no exposure to me or my agency, Canopy Management, put a 5 in the chat. I'm just kind of curious how many new people that I'm talking with today. Now, for those, Jag, welcome. Awesome. Thank you. For those of you who want to consider, George, don't be sorry, man. Like that's why we do marketing, is because we want to try to get in front of a lot more people. I may have helped 20,000, but I need to be able to help 20,001, right? So that's why I'm here. So for those of you, obviously this whole workshop today is sponsored by my agency, Canopy Management. So here's my pitch, okay, real fast, get it out of the way, is we want to help you convert more of those browsers, more of those shoppers into buyers. And I know that my agency team can certainly help you do that. If you have an established Amazon brand, if you feel like you've got like a big catalog, or if you just want more help, then at the end of this, I'm going to give you the tactics. You can put them in place, but if you feel like you need more help than what you're going to put into place, go ahead and reach out to my team, okay? I put the link down below here. It's grow.canopymanagement.com/start now. And AJ, if you want to copy that over and put it into the chat so that people can click on it, that would be fantastic. But we do have literally an average 38% lift in conversion rate through our listing optimization, and we have even a higher percentage success with our ad management, and that includes both native PPC as well as DSP. That all said, we do have a phenomenal track record. We would love to be able to have a chance to have a conversation with you. There's no risk, there's no cost. We're not charging for the evaluation right now, but I can tell you is if you go to this page, you'll see some of the things that we're actually going to create for you for free that you're probably going to want to know about your own business, all right? And your competition, by the way. So let's keep moving forward. All right, George, I'm glad you're here, buddy. So let's start out with kind of frame the problem a little bit here, okay? Why do so many search results on Amazon look pretty much the same? Well, here's the answer. Copycats. there's a whole lot of courses and instructors, gurus, whatever you want to call them, out there. I look at it just from a positive. So anybody who's out there putting their face out there and trying to train people, I've got respect for, because it always comes with, you know, both a mix of cheers and boos, you know, and that's okay. But there's a lot of similar training out there that essentially tells new brands to create their product listings and to emulate the success of their competitors. That's not a bad idea, except when everybody does the same thing, because when everybody does the same thing, then you get the same result, right? And so you get some results like this, and hopefully what I'm showing right now, please correct me if I'm wrong, you should see a slide that has a search result with a whole bunch of black tennis shoes, black sneakers, and most of them are pointing the same direction, and there's no color to them, and they're just, you can imagine a shopper looking at this, and especially if they're on their phone, right? And so it's shrunk down, and their eye doesn't draw to anything, right? Their eye doesn't catch anything different. Like what stands out to you might be something like in the Adidas, and I was corrected on the name. I always thought it was Adidas, but apparently it's Adidas from the family name. And it's got 3 white stripes on the shoe. And so that catches my eye pretty quick. So does maybe the double shoe up on the top left. And then maybe the shoe down the bottom right that's pointing the opposite direction. These are clues. I'll come back to these, okay? But really, what does your eye really draw to? What your eye drew to was simply just like what kind of stood out, what was abnormal, not which was the norm, right? What was the common pattern? So, as one of the quotes that I like from the supervillain syndrome in The Incredibles. I don't know if any of you are fans of that, but he says, "When everyone's super, no one will be." Meaning when everybody looks the same, nobody's going to stand out, right? We don't want that. We want to stand out from our competition. We want the shopper to pause their scrolling, you know, whether it's a thumb scroll on their phone or on their desktop, they're scrolling, you know, with their you know, touchpad or their mouse, whatever. We want them to stop for a split second to look at our image, hopefully to look at our title, see something in the title that then pulls them into the product listing. And then our product listing does finish the job of hooking the shopper into what is the benefit? What's in it for me as a shopper if I buy your product? And way too many of you, the reason I say that, and I generalize, is because I see it every single day. I can go into absolutely any search that you send me, and I can see where 99% of the products that are on there are talking facts. They have these big, you know, 5-paragraph, you know, stories that they're telling inside of their bullet points. And shoppers have 2 things. One is they have a very short attention span, like 5 seconds at most. And 2, they don't want to read. They're lazy, right? I guess that's kind of the same thing, right? But ultimately, the second thing is actually, what is it that they want to, what's in it for me, right? They want to know, like, why do I even care? I don't care about your brand. I don't care about whatever charity that you're donating to. Who cares? Okay. You care about that. I don't care about that, right? What I care is the product going to solve the need that I have? Am I going to be happy with this? Or is your product listing going to confuse me and just kind of push me around to just continue to shop? We want to try to avoid that. All right. So the first thing, number 1, is we're going to want to stand out with some kind of color. Okay, there's a lot of elements to be able to stand out. I pointed out some of the things as far as like the 3 stripes on the Adidas shoes, or the different facing direction of shoes. We'll get into that later. But first and foremost is you've got to have some kind of a color splash that is contrasting from your competition. Now, hear me again when I say that. What you're looking to do is stand out from whatever your competition is. That means there's no right one color. It's not like, oh, I've got to have yellow in my product listing. No. Don't get fixated on like, here's the one thing you should be doing, because otherwise everybody's going to do the same thing. What you want to do is you want to look at the search results in your product niche. Go do that now. I'll wait. No, I'm kidding. I won't. But what I want to know is, there's actually something I do want to know. In fact, let me go ahead and get this up here while I'm thinking about it, because I forgot to ask. And that was a poll to say, if you have looked at your business reports, this is where, I want you to know what your conversion rate is inside of your business reports, inside of Seller Central, and you're looking at the unique session percentage. So I'm going to put up a poll here. Okay. I want to see a really high percentage of those of you who are listening in. I want to see your vote on this. Okay. So the poll is launched. I want to know, even if if you don't have to look it up, hopefully you know approximately what your conversion rate is for your product. I want to get some feedback as far as like what you think your conversion rate is for your products, because I can guarantee you it can be better than what it is. Even some of those that are over 30% can be better. So let me go ahead and let those come in here. I am going to, all right, so I want a few more here. All right. So I'm gonna want 6 more. Hero is your number 1 selling product. Typically it's what you hyper focus on because it brings you the most sales. That's usually what you consider to be your hero product. Your sidekick product is usually the second one that sells the most. And then all the other ones are kind of your minions. Back to the whole superhero thing. All right, one more. I just need one more. Come on. One more. Come on. You can do it. For those of you who are like off watching something else, come back, open up chat, or get the poll. Awesome. There we go. Perfect. Excellent. Okay. I'm going to close this out. For those of you who didn't know where to look it up. So that's a fantastic question, George. Thank you. So if you got a Seller Central account, okay, so I mean Seller Central, right? If you go into your reports and then business reports, and then go over to detail by ASIN, you should see a table that shows your products, and it should show a couple of metrics, including sessions and units per session, or what we call USP. That is your overall conversion rate of your products. So if you're not familiar with that, you may already be familiar with that, but if you weren't familiar with that, that is a great metric to know all the time. All right. So let me go ahead and close this out here. I'm going to end the poll, and it looks to me, all right, let me go ahead and share the results here just so that people can see what's going on. All right, so we have a pretty high percentage. Now, on Amazon, 10 to 12%, some say 12 to 15% average conversion rate on Amazon is kind of the standard. If you're selling off of Amazon, if you're on a Shopify or eBay or some other platform, it's usually single digit. It's usually below 10%. So Amazon does have quite a bit of trust that they've created. They certainly create things like, I want it fast, so ship it to me, for Prime members. And there's a lot of trust. That's one of the reasons why they have, like, we'll say 10 to 12 or 10 to 15% conversion rate on average. But it absolutely varies by product niche. So if you don't have that conversion rate range, if it's better or worse, it's usually conditional to the specific product niche that you're in. You can hit me up afterwards as far as more specifics on that. Now, all right, let me go ahead and stop sharing this, but I would say most of you probably in the 10 to 30% range, pretty good range there. That's fantastic. Okay, so what you implement today then is actually going to be even more effective, because you're not dealing with the sub 10%, but the sub 10%, even the smallest change can make a huge difference. It can make a conversion rate pop, which is what we want. But we want to stand out with color. So coming back to the color splash piece of it, what we want to do is we want to identify. So the way that you do this is you search on Amazon, okay? and you, give me 1 second here. Okay, so you search on Amazon for whatever your favorite search term is that you're going after, okay? And then what you do on that is you look for what is common among the colors, right? So you're looking at the main images. You're looking for what are some of the common patterns that are in the search results that you're trying to compete with. In other words, if your product was in that list of search results, you want to look at, first and foremost, what was the first image that caught your eye of the product listings? It could be ads, it could be, you know, organic product listings. But what was the first one that caught your eye and why? This is something I've actually studied. I've done quite a bit of research on this over the past 2 years. And 9 times out of 10, the first thing that catches somebody's eye is a color pop, specifically a bright color pop, like a red, blue, green type of color pop, especially when it stands out from the competition. Now, if everybody has a red product, your red product's not going to stand out, is it? Right? If you do a search for black shoes and some white shoes show up, the white ones do stand out because you're looking for black shoes and there's, oh, here's a couple of white shoes that get thrown in there. So usually some kind of a contrast in the color makes the biggest difference, right? There's other elements, and I can get into those later on when you talk about split testing, as far as white space, clutter, the direction the product is facing, any kind of badges or green coupon codes or anything like that. Some of those things obviously can introduce color, but they can catch the eye of the shopper. So all of those have those. And I've created separate videos on my YouTube channel that specifically talk about all those different examples in more detail. But today, specifically color, because it has the greatest, the fastest benefit, I guess. So when we talk about using a different color splash, let's say, like an example, for instance, I was talking about let me see if I show an example. Here we go. I do have examples. Let's say, for instance, you have a search result full of black shoes, right? Now, obviously, if you sell a red shoe, that's going to stand out, especially if somebody's searching for black shoes, right? Which does happen. But think about it this way also. There's a couple of things that were done on this as far as the shoe. I won't get into detail as far as some of the other tricks of the eye that are going on here with this. But when it comes to a splash of color, it could be as simple as having some kind of packaging or some kind of object that may be in the background that's got a splash of red or green or blue or yellow or some kind of a bright color. As long as it stands out as being a different color splash, the different color accent, if you will, from everything else that is showing up in those search results, right? Because you're trying to capture the eye. You think about this. The shopper is scrolling quickly. Maybe they're on their phone and they're just, you know, they're thumbing through this thing, right? And yeah, for sure. Exactly. So, because that's what I do. I know. And you only see the main image. You're not really paying attention to the title. It's mostly about the images that tend to catch our attention most of the time. So if you look at some of the examples down below, in the bottom left-hand corner, you see a bunch of stainless steel bowls with black lids. Let's say all of your competition had a similar pattern in that they're all stainless steel bowls and they all had black or dark colored lids, right? What they've done here is they've done a little splash. It's a little bit forced, maybe, you know, it's not subtle, but the first 2 pictures, they just kind of throw a little object in there, a little green, a little red. In the first one, you've got some, looks like some lettuce, maybe some, you know, it's relevant to what the product is for, but the idea is that it's throwing in a color splash, and it only works if nobody or if most of your competition are not doing anything with color. The second one along the bottom row, they put in a couple of little red apples. Very subtle, but it's enough to catch a shopper's eye. It's actually fairly clever, especially or only if all their competition is doing nothing with color and they're just showing all the pans, right? Sometimes you'll see, like, if they've got like a frying pan, they'll actually have something in the frying pan, for instance, but whatever's in the frying pan actually has color to it. The third image, of course, well, it's a different colored product. So naturally it's going to catch the eye. If everything else is stainless steel or black, and you happen to sell a blue one, well, it's going to catch your eye. But how many of you are really going to go out there and produce a whole new color of your product just to catch people's shoppers' attention, right? Now, there can be reasons for that. If your audience is saying, you know what, these are boring colors, I wish there was something with color, and there was an actual market demand, right? But this is part of your market research and listening to your target audience, right? But some of these other things, if you are selling a very popular color, high in demand, conservative, black, white, silver, whatever the case is, throwing in a splash of color when your competition doesn't is a great way of getting a shopper to pause for a split second to look at your image. Okay, let me keep things moving along here. The other way to do that, if you look at the fourth image on the second row there, you'll see off in the background, they have a red and black box, part of the packaging. It's not up at the forefront. It's not taking up a whole lot of space, but it is off in the background. So the eye catches the red splash of color, even though it's obviously not the focal point of the photo. The focal point is primarily on the products and all the value. Now they're throwing too much in here, I think, right? And here's an example where I'm going to contrast that fourth image on the second row with that top right image up above on the first row, where I don't know if I've got any kind of, I don't know if you can see my mouse or not, maybe not, but oops. The difference being here is white, as in lack of clutter, is still a color splash, right? It doesn't have to be red, blue, green, right? It has to be different than what everybody else does. Now, think about if you look at the second row and you look at the first four images, the common theme there is there's a lot of clutter. There's a lot going on. There's a lot for the brain to process. There's, okay, you're basically just vomiting the value that you're presenting to me as a shopper. And it looks cluttered, right? It's gotten, the first image, it actually has got some uniformity to it. It's not too bad, right? The second one, just kind of, they put it on there cluttered. Third one, cluttered. Fourth one, really cluttered. They're just like, oh, we got all this stuff we're going to throw in, right? First row, top right, what you see is a whole bunch of white space around a setup of the products. They're not showing all the additional spatulas and covers and all that kind of stuff that may go along with this. They're saving that for inside the product listing, but they are showing that this is a multi-piece cookware set, and they put some depth into the photo so that you can still see it, but yet it's surrounded by a whole bunch of white space. And this especially works well if most of your other competitors have too much clutter. And you know that if you're in any kind of a product niche where we've got 15 accessories that we're putting into, you'll see that a common mistake that sellers make is they try to, like I said before, just vomit all the value into the main image and try to sell you on the main image. And that's not where the conversion takes place, right? You're just trying to grab the shopper's attention right now, okay? So a splash of color thrown into the background, preferably not photoshopped in, but if you get it really well professionally done, then maybe. But even white, is in a whole bunch of white space, is contrast. If it's contrast from your competition in the search results, then you're likely going to stand out again because of the white space, right? The last one on the bottom right is just kind of, there's some interesting shapes and angles going on. There's a little splash of color on the black box there. All right, cool. Who's still with me? Give me a 1 if you're still with me. Give me a 0 if you're like, all right, cool. I love the participation on this. I really appreciate this. All right, I'm going to keep moving here. All right, so that way you can get we can get through the next things. Now, another way, actually, let me throw in one other thing that actually throws in colors. I mentioned this before, and that has to do with things like badges and discount coupons and offers. So one of the things you can do on this is that if you know, of course, is that the green box shows up when you do some kind of a coupon code, right? Now, look at your search results, look at your product niche. And if your competition generally is not doing any kind of coupon codes, turn on a coupon code. Now, I ideally do it for a dollar amount. A dollar amount is much easier to process for the human brain. It's a lot easier to do the math when it's a dollar amount. Okay, the bigger the better, of course, but a dollar amount over a percentage. Okay, but either way is if your competition is not using coupons and you're the only one, or there's only a couple of you out of the entire search results that are using a coupon code, you've got this big green box that's going to catch shoppers' attention, right? Everybody see that? Okay. Now you have to look again. If everybody you got to look at your specific niche. If everybody in your niche is using coupon codes, maybe you don't put in a coupon code, or maybe you've got to go really aggressive in that dollar amount coupon code. Different discussion. Limited time deals. Usually these are where you have at least, I think it's like a 4 or 5% drop in price within the last 30 days, I think it is. Then you can get this limited time deal badge. Again, it's a splash of color. If you've got no other options, this may be an option for you. Okay. All right. Okay. Quick break here. Okay. So hopefully everybody got tactic number 1, right? Burn that in their brain. Have got plans to actually implement this. All right. The next one is going to be, and what did I do? Oh, there we go. The second one is hooking the shopper's interest. Okay. Now that we've got the shopper to pause for a split second because our image or some kind of color splash, something about our image caught their attention, got them to stop scrolling for half a second, they're more likely to actually look at your title. Now, the title is something where you've got to break away again from your competition, and you also need to start introducing a benefit hook. Okay, and that's like 2 to 3 words. So this is where you hook the shopper's interest. All right, here we go. Let's see here. The first one, I'm not sure why it's jumping around so much here. The first step on this, like we did on the first process, right, is identify the common pattern of words used in the titles of the search results of, that include your competitors, right? Usually that includes things like industry terminology, keyword stuffing. I always love the titles that I always love going into a product niche and seeing a whole bunch of titles that says this product is for men, women, boys, girls, children's, mothers, whatever. Like they're stuffing keywords in there thinking that the search engine's going to care less, and it doesn't. All right. And because those kind of generic words get ignored oftentimes. So I always love those because that just makes it that much easier for me to dominate that niche. Just saying. But identify the common words in the titles of your search results. Now, if your product is on, I had this question recently, so it's like, well, that's all fine and dandy for page 1, but I'm on page 5. Compare it to the page you're on. Okay. When your conversion rate changes and your sales velocity increases and you move up to page 4, page 3, then reevaluate for that page. Okay. So what you're trying to do right now is you're trying to stand out from whatever page search results that you show up on. Okay. Now, you want to identify in the titles. We've got their attention with the image. Now they're going to pause and look at your title. You'll notice down below there, I say in the first 75 characters. I'm not suggesting that you limit your title length to 75 characters. What I am saying is in mobile, which is typically going to have the shortest titles available, it's usually about 75 to 80 characters is the only visible length of the title. So if you've got a whole bunch of brilliant terminology and hooks and everything that you're doing from character 81 on, they're probably not going to see it. Right? So make sure that you're trying to put it in the first 75 characters and try to keep it succinct. Keep it like down to 2 to 3 words. So you want to try to focus first and foremost on anything that could be benefit driven and using terminology, using words that are unlike anything your competition is using. I'll show you a couple examples on this. The rest of your, Glenn, that is a fantastic question. I'm gonna quote you here if you don't mind. So Glenn asks, how do you balance that as far as the benefit, 2 or 3 words of benefit, with the keywords required to provide relevancy. Well, if you are brand registered and you have A+ content, you have about 500 additional words. I think it's like 500, let's say 300 to 500 additional words that you can put into your A+ content embedded. It's not even visible, right? It's for the reading impaired alternate text that you have for images. And you can put in a lot of your common phrases that you would use. Now, you may have a single phrase that you're specifically trying to rank for, okay? And you may want to try to put that into your title and for ranking purposes, and that's fine. But try, like we did with the images, try to break away from what your competition is doing. Try to be different, try to stand out, use words that catch people's attention that your competition is not using, right? Let's say, for instance, you've got, in most cases, I would say, like, for instance, you've got a brand name. If nobody knows your brand name, it doesn't need to be in the front. Now, I realize there's some restrictions on certain categories regarding that, but hopefully you've got a short brand name. But you don't necessarily need to lead with it if you can get away with it in your category. You may want to have certainly your keyword phrase in your title, but keep in mind is that Amazon sees the full title. So if you're worried about A9 as a search algorithm, seeing relevancy, as long as it's in the title somewhere, it's probably good enough, right? Now, there is some arguments that it can be made as far as like, well, if it's in the front or the middle or the back, it's going to have different impact. Usually it's small enough that it doesn't make that big of a difference, right? It's something to test, which is going to be secret number 3, which I'm going to talk about as far as the split testing. That's a perfect way to test this. But you do want to try to stand out from your competition. Let's say, for instance, you sell the same product that everybody else does. Here's a common product that usually gets brought to me, right? They're like, okay, if anybody can solve this, Brian can solve this. And that is, I've got the exact same product as everybody else, the same color. It comes from the same manufacturer, same mold, everything's the same, except my product's $20 more expensive than everybody else's, because somehow they're not making any money. They're undercutting the Chinese sellers, blah, 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 whatever, right? It's an excuse. It's a valid excuse in the yes, there is certainly some undercutting, but the way around this is to grab the attention of the shopper, right? Differentiating your image, differentiating your main image, and actually creating a hook with a benefit. Most of you have not gone through and figured out what are the top 5 actual benefits of your products. You figured out like, okay, it's got this feature because the factory told me it's got this feature. But a lot of times we don't go through and take the time to really listen to our target audience, read 100,000 reviews. How many of you done that? To hear the chatter both on Amazon reviews as well as eBay reviews, as well as an Instagram hashtag, to hear what people are talking about products, their frustrations and what they like, what they don't like. Are you listening to your audience? Different topic. We'll pull it out of this one here so we don't go down too much of a rabbit hole, okay? But you've got to understand that there are some benefits that as a shopper, I'm going to want for me. Don't make me figure out what the benefit is to me if I buy your product. I want you to tell, I'm lazy. Tell me what's in it for me if I buy your product, and do it succinctly, because frankly, I'm lazy and I'm distracted by Netflix or, my cell phone or whatever the case is, right? That's what we're working with these days, right? So what I want you to do is I want you to identify in a couple of words, maybe 3 words, right? If you can fit it in, and you can fit it in the first 75 characters, and this is something you can split test with, which I'll go into in a little bit. But I want you to identify what is a benefit that you can, I'm sorry, image is freezing up there. There we go. What is a benefit of a shopper owning your product? What's the first one? What's the second one? What's the third one? You're going to want to know at least 5 different benefits, because those are really need to go right up front in your bullet points. You're going to lead with those in your bullet points in your listing. You're going to use your other additional images in your product listing in order to highlight those benefits. And you want to do those succinctly. So I'm not going to go into this rabbit hole because that's a whole different workshop. Explain to people what those top 5 benefits are and do each one within 5 seconds on an image or a bullet point. Do it within 5 seconds right up front. What's the benefit? And then maybe add on in another 2 to 3 words or a few words, what's the feature that supports that benefit, right? So they understand the correlation between what you're offering and what's in it for me, what's in it for the shopper. I'll come back and I'll show you a couple of examples, okay? Is like, your Amazon products are invisible. Yes, that is one of my YouTube workshops that I've done in the past. Yes, thank you. So let me kind of move forward and show you some examples of this. Okay. Now, this is usually where I lose some people because some of the examples are, they're a little bit fuzzy, but that's okay, because I want you to get creative on this. I want you to start testing, which I'm going to show you in the third one here. But some of the things that you can do to hook the attention of the shopper and build their curiosity so they want to click through to your product listing. Because throw in the chat, I want everybody to like open up their chat window right now and put in here really quick. What happens, what's the greatest benefit to you as a seller when a shopper clicks through on your product title to your product detail page, to your product listing? Okay. What does that click give you? Or what does that click take away? Throw in the chat really quick. Got rank, page authority, ability to sell. Yeah, that actually is a really good point. It's like you can't sell them until they're actually on your page. That is absolutely true. All right, I'll let you off the hook here. All right, so we're getting some great answers. Okay, click-through rate and everything, metrics, all that. You are separating that shopper from that list of competition that showed up in the search results. You're kind of isolating that shopper off into your own corner. Now, yes, there are competitors who are peering around the corner down below your listing with ads and such, right? But you've pulled them away from this long list of competitors that are just staring right in their face that are really easy to click. So you've got to get that first click. You've got to grab their attention so they pause for a second and look at your image and then look at your title. You want to have 2 or 3 words in your first 75 characters that beg the attention and say like, okay, I want to know more because that benefit means something to me. Some of the things that I use, like in this example here, I sometimes I like to be funny, a little cheeky in some of my, things like, if I'm selling a hook product or something that has a hook, I might say like in the title won't catapult. Now, if you saw this as a shopper, wouldn't that grab your attention? Because nobody else is saying it's like won't catapult. You're using words that are pretty visual, and you're using words that probably nobody else is using. Like, who uses the term catapult in a product title? Okay. A case for an iPhone or something, right? So a face plant guard, if I drop it on the floor and it hits the face, it does a face plant, right? Or if I fall down, my phone's not going to get destroyed if I do a face plant. Again, there's a visual. It's like, oh man, I can picture a catapult. I can picture face planting. The one that usually loses people is apex stitching. Now, apex stitching sounds like a very proprietary feature. Now, in this case, it's a feature, not a benefit, right? But apex stitching, it sounds like a very proprietary feature. Apex is kind of a funny word. It's like, I kind of know what it is, but I don't really know. I'm kind of curious. Let me go and click through and see what this special feature is that they're pointing out in their title, right? On an office chair, when you have triple stitching along the top, right? Now, this is not a good example because this doesn't have like a bunch of padding inside, right? But the triple stitching along the top, the apex, right? is designed in order to keep it firm so that it's more comfortable, which you explain, you explain it obviously inside of the product listing, right? We want to try to avoid being gimmicky, but at the same time, we went to try to describe features or benefits using terminology that your competition is not, that by itself, a single word can make a shopper go, wait, what's that word? Ideally, not to confuse them, but to just beg their curiosity a little bit that maybe there's a benefit or a feature in here that seems maybe it's proprietary and maybe I should take a closer look at. Let me click through to figure out what this is. You just won that battle, right? Some of the other ones that tend to catch people's attention, grab their eye, is just using words like in the example in my first one here, as far as uncommon words, cringe, snap, apex. These things, there's a couple of reasons for that. One, like say apex has an X in it. For some reason, X's and O's seem to catch human eyeballs, especially if they're repeated or they're capitalized. So like, for instance, if you have something like an X, if you have a brand name that maybe has a couple of O's, intentionally misspelling, in other words, can certainly grab people's attention because it's out of place, right? It's a pattern that their subconscious goes like, wait, what is this? And it makes them pause. Again, it makes them pause and pulls them into it, okay? Now, there's probably a lot more examples that I can go into, but give me, I want you to, this is primarily just to kind of kickstart that you can be creative, but maybe you just haven't done so yet. Because ultimately what I'm asking you to do is I want you to stand out from the competition also in your title. And again, the third thing I'm going to talk about is split testing, is I want you to be testing to see what actually generates increase in sessions, increase in conversion rates, because those are likely going to have a building effect with each iteration of the split testing that you're doing over time. And if you continue to do those tests, you're going to find that you're going to start gaining, increasing your conversion rate, increasing your market share and your profitability. You're going to start winning the race against your competition. Now, my black shoes will make you 3 inches taller. Yeah, I mean, Amazon typically will not allow you to do more than one word all capitalized, right? They tend to be a little more sensitive of that, okay? But I think that is actually a great test to certainly try to do, is how can I grab people's attention, right? All right. Let me keep moving forward here. I'll open it up for questions at the end so that we can kind of, scenario build if you want. But the third thing that I want to talk about, of course, is split testing images and titles. All these things I was talking about, the color splashing, trying to change directions, and I'll actually show you some additional examples here as far as what to do with your images and your titles that you may want to consider for your split testing. But please, 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 start split testing today. If you have access to it and you're not using it, you're completely leaving money on the table, right? Now, if you just launched a product, you may not have enough sessions yet to that product for it to qualify for split testing yet. But once you reach that point, I think it's only like 800 or 1,000 sessions in a month, then you'll get access to be able to start doing split testing, right? And it's native split testing on Amazon. It's not outside of Amazon. It's not some third party making changes. It is actually what they call A/B split testing. Now, let me take a step back, because usually there is a question about split testing, as in what is it? What is A/B split testing? There's other names for it. There's A/B split testing. There's alphabet split testing. There is multivariate testing or multivariate. There's a couple different versions of that. But essentially, all you're doing is you're saying like, okay, which do you prefer, A or B? Okay, that's an A/B. Amazon Experiments, which is in Seller Central, Amazon Experiments, and I believe it's under, gosh, is it marketing? I forget now. If anybody knows the menu that Amazon Experiments is on, please let me know. I'll go and repeat it here. But the A/B split testing allows you to say, okay, show for each shopper, for every other shopper, I should say, show version A, and the next one show version B, and then A, and then B, A, B, A, B, right? You get the point. And then ultimately it's going to compare it. And I would recommend doing like a 4-week test, right? I think you can do like a 4-week to 8-week or even longer split test with Amazon Experiments. I just recommend doing a 4-week because I want to continue to iterate this. I want to do another 4 weeks and then another 4 weeks and then another 4 weeks. And I want to do that year round. I want to be doing the split testing for your main image, for your title, even for your A+ content, but get your image and your title dialed in first. Okay. It's under brands, Glenn says. Okay, cool. And that's called Amazon Experiments. That's their A/B split testing. It's cool. It doesn't provide a whole lot of data. In other words, it's pretty limited. You're going to have things like, the click-through rate and it'll show you, it doesn't really do a good job as far as showing the difference in the comparison of sessions, but you're going to want to go back and look at the business report and say, okay, you know what, before I started this test, I had 5,000 sessions to my product in a month. Now I've got 8,000, and that's higher than it was this time last year. You got to compare it against something. So maybe there was an increase in the number of people who clicked through my listing. It's going to do a better job as far as showing how many people actually converted, right? Which one had in other words, Amazon Experiments at the end of a 4-week cycle, it's going to come back and say, okay, experiment B had a 0.25% advantage over experiment A. Okay, well, maybe that's too close to really consider. So then you come up with, okay, let me change it up a little bit more. And then you go, okay, let me do A against C this time. Okay. And then you run that for 4 weeks, right? You do a different test. You usually try to do subtle tests, single words or small changes. You don't try to just replace everything really quickly. But sometimes what you'll get is what is common, what we typically see at Canopy is we'll do, you might get a 1 to 2% increase in conversion rate. For some products, that can be a huge amount, right? As far as 1 to 2%. And then you build that up over time. Now, obviously, for us to have a 38% average increase in conversion rates, when we actually work on a product listing and do a product listing overhaul, right? New images, new title, new bullet points, we go in and we research the competition, we research the target audience. It's a lot of work, it really is. But we do see within our agency, we do see an average 38% jump in conversion rate. Now, 38%, that would be like, say, going from 10% to 13, 14% in that example, right? If you're at 20%, maybe that's jumping up to, I don't know, quick math, right? So 26, 20, 28, oh man, on the spot math, not good. But my point is, that's just the first round, okay? And then you start doing the split testing, okay? And you do that split testing every 4 weeks, and you just keep on going. Think about the progress. If you made even a 0.5% increase in your conversion rate each month, where is it going to be 12 months, a year from now, right? How much of an advantage are you going to have over your competition a year from now if you're actually putting in practice something that they're not? You're going to start pulling away from them. If you're either catching up to them or you're pulling away from them, and you're going to start dominating your niche. I've got a shirt here. One of the things we like to call is we create category kings and queens. It's basically like we want our clients, our partners, to dominate their niche. I've gotten really good at it. Anyway, all right, so then, okay, so let me kind of get into some examples here really quick. All right, so we went through and you collected some ideas of what stands out from your competition. What is a contrast from your competition? What is completely different from your competition? The road less traveled, as I like to say. From your image, we talked about in Secret 1, and your title in Secret 2. And we want to put these into Amazon Experiments, and we want to run these in each of a 4-week split testing iteration. Okay, don't stop, keep on doing it every 4 weeks, right? Some additional examples that I'll point out here that I like to test is I'll make image changes. Maybe I don't do a splash of color, but maybe there's some benefit or feature like I'm showing in this supplement bottle where it's a little bit too small, a little bit too blurry in small scale for me to see it. And so I'm going to take the liberty to blow up certain information, certain text, and test to see, does that increase engagement? Does it increase the number of sessions? Does it increase the conversion rate by blowing up a feature that maybe is my standout feature for my competition? let's say, for instance, in this example, that I'm in, of course, the turmeric, bioprene, garlic, ginger niche, right? And everybody else has a 1,500 or a 2,000 milligram. And mine has the largest at 2,360, right? I want people to know that. I want to put it in my title. I want to show it in my image, and I don't want it as a small print that people look at on the label. I'm going to blow it up a little bit, and I'm going to test that to see, using Amazon experiments, I'm going to split test that to see, did it actually increase engagement and conversion rate? You could be testing a color splash, you know, the apple or the lettuce leaves in the corner of the kitchen bowls, right? You could have you know, a red box in the background, a red or a blue box in the background, whatever is contrast from your competition behind the black shoes, but it's off in the distance, right? So it's got some depth behind it. I might, is this example here, as far as direction goes, the red shoe example that I'm showing here is, instead of just having the standard, remember that first slide that I showed you, all of the search results of the black sneaker, and they're all pointed the same direction, and they're all just kind of flat sideways. Try tilting it up. Try having, both shoes tilted at different directions. It doesn't have to necessarily be a red product among black ones, but even changing directions. You notice that they kind of created a V here, or somewhat of an X. These kinds of things are going to grab shoppers' attentions. Test it, test it, test it, test it. Okay. As far as Reza was asking, saying, aren't these against Amazon rules? You cannot put in additional things as far as like awards or #1 bestseller or these kinds of things. However, you can do things like increase the font of an image slightly, so that if it's already on the front of the bottle of the image, for instance, you can blow it up a little bit, right? Don't go crazy and don't make it stand out and be separate from the product. The packaging in the back, you see that all day long in every single category. That's pretty normal. So it's unlikely that Amazon's going to question you on that, right? If it's off in the distance. But sometimes even the angle of the product in your photo, as long as it's opposite or substantially different than what your competition is typically doing, the common pattern in the search results, that is what is going to catch people's eyes. Again, it's a testing point, right? Let's see here. Oh, Glenn was asking as far as the A/B split testing. So what do you do when you get a reversal of results from week to week? So let's say, for instance, you've got week 1, week 2, A in front, week 3, B in front. If you're using an external source where it's cycling 1 week to next, I think those are pretty inaccurate testing. Like, there are some third-party testing platforms that will change the image from week to week, but you've got no way of knowing, well, was this just a seasonally high week or a seasonally slow weekend or something, right? And so you may confuse the results with something that is naturally occurring on the platform or in the marketplace or in people's lives that you may not be able to time well. And so then you're trying to figure out, when do I run this where it's not going to be affected? And then you end up with, oh, I only ran 3 tests this year. That's one of the reasons why I like Amazon experiments. Even though it's got some limitations to it, it's still better than the third-party external platforms that change out like once a day or once a week or something, right? But if you have a negative result in Amazon experiments, in other words, you go in there and say, look, your B experiment where you were trying dropped conversion rate by 3.5%. Okay, now you know that was not it. Okay, what's your next test, right? It's not going to dilute your sales and your overall conversion rate enough to, it's not going to be catastrophic. In other words, even if you screw something up and it says, well, it dropped, it dropped, it's like, well, B dropped conversion rate by 20%. Okay, now you know exactly what not to do, right? You can start figuring it out. It's like, okay, oh, now I understand as far as why, because I did something that was gimmicky, or maybe it was, it turns out the image was blurry, or I did something that introduced confusion or doubt to a shopper and it made it worse. Well, now you know not to do that again. It's only a 4-week test, right? You got 11 more that year to do. And so you can come back and say, okay, let me try something completely different, right? Usually when it comes to like say keyword changes in the title, the common question that I get on this is, well, won't I lose my ranking if I change my title at all? That used to be a concern a couple of years ago. I don't really have that problem. Now, is there always a potential risk? Yes. If you have a product that is the #1 seller in your category and it's got a high conversion rate, you may not want to make any changes. You may want to leave that one alone and look at your secondary product, you know, your sidekick product or some of your other products. One of my favorite things to do is, especially when you've got multiple products, is to go in and identify those products that have an above average conversion rate, but have very low sessions. And those low sessions because they've never gotten the light of day. First of all, those should be getting more advertising. And second, those should be thrown into split testing or doing something to stand out and catch the attention of the shopper. Usually it's the problem with those, it's been stuffed away in the closet. In other words, it's been a child variation of your hero product, your #1 selling product. And you've really got to break it away from that other product if you want it to show up on the same search results as your #1 product in order for it to see the light of day. Usually that requires a certain amount of social proof. In other words, some product reviews, but it is certainly something to do. Certainly hit me up on that because that's a whole new conversation as well. I do recommend the habit that I use as far as the testing cadence is 4 weeks, right? I don't typically go 8, 10 weeks, whatever, because I think that's a little bit too long, right? I want to know some initial feedback a little bit earlier, so I just typically do 4 weeks. That's me. We've had really good luck with that. What comes first, the title or the image? Great question. Thank you for asking that one. Because I usually am, if I'm able to identify, this is kind of where you have to evaluate, okay, did I identify the greatest contrast to my competition in the search results as being an image change versus a title change? Go with the one where you saw the biggest difference, where you could stand out from your competition the most. That's the one I want to try to put in place first, because I want to try to see some results early on. Okay. So if that is where you happen to have a red box, or you've got a yellow box and you can put it behind your blue product and nobody else has blue and yellow combination, and it's just an additional splash of color, and it's very likely to stand out and grab the eye of a shopper, that's the one I'm testing. I'm going to test the image first. If I've got some really creative, clever words that shout the benefit and use terminology that nobody else is using, and I think that that's going to grab people's attention, they're going to notice it just when they're scrolling down, let alone if they want to consider my product title, then that's the one I'm going to test first. So you kind of have to look to see, you play it by ear and really look to see which one do I think I can get the biggest bang for the buck first, and go, am I going to test the image first or am I going to test the title first, right? That's one of the reasons why I usually leave the A+ content way down the road. All right, I may have missed a couple of questions on this, but let's see here. One last thing on this particular slide is white space. Remember the example I used before, where if you're in a niche where there's a whole bunch of accessories and there's a dozen different products in a main image, try to go the opposite. Try to show the core image with a whole bunch of white space around, assuming that it stands out from the competition, and then in the additional images and the bullet points, you sell them, here's all the additional things you're getting. Okay, you're not trying to sell them on, here's all the value we're going to spit up at you on the very first image. All right, I already talked about as far as the title testing. Test out some more creative words. Get funny, get fancy. Try to avoid clickbait, gimmicky kind of words, but don't be afraid to test out words that seem maybe a little bit odd. They're still the same word that describes, do a synonym search on Google and say, what's a synonym for a common feature or a benefit of my product? One of the things that I think is interesting is, one of the things I tell my clients, here's a little secret, all right? Please don't tell this to everybody else, otherwise my competition will know what I'm doing here. Go back to your manufacturer. ask them two questions. What's the most expensive step in the manufacturing process of my product? And the second one is, what's the most time-consuming step in the manufacturing of my product? The answer you'll get may require a little bit of additional explanation, but there's a reason why something takes longer, and there's a reason why something might cost more. Maybe they have to triple stitch something so that it's reinforced. Bingo, you got a feature, this is triple reinforced, right? How many of your competition asked that question, let alone told the shopper, here's a benefit that you get or a feature that you get that everybody offers, but if you're the only one who's pointing it out, you're going to stand out from the competition. Those kind of words grab people's attention because you care about what's in it for them as a shopper. Cool. All right. Okay. Another one I commonly see here, right? I'm going to wrap it up here and we'll get to questions and all that kind of stuff. AJ, do me one more favor. For those of you who are kind of feeling this overwhelmed, that is understandable. We have a professional team that does this at Canopy. AJ, if you could put in for the link for everybody that basically says, like, here's how you have a conversation with my agency team to see, is there something that we can do for you? Is it a good fit? And if you like what we're doing, we'll tell you the cost. If the cost makes sense for you as the business owner, cool, let's do business together. Otherwise, you can do all this yourself too, okay? Now, we can do it a lot faster, and we've got a highly trained team and graphic designers and photographers and all that kind of stuff, right? But so that is a good reason to have that conversation, is to get kind of the report card of how are you doing in the Amazon space, and is there anything that we can do for you, okay? The example that I'm showing here is industry terminology. As a seller, as a manufacturer, it is very common for us to use terminology. And the example I'm using here is like, oh, this has UL 94. Nobody knows what UL 94 is, except for those who are manufacturing the process or selling the product. The consumer doesn't know what UL 94 is. Are you really searching for what UL 94? You know what it is? It's fire resistant. Just put fire resistant. Use terminology that people understand. Get rid of some of the like, oh, this is 301 stainless steel. It's like, I've got no idea what that means. Tell me why this makes any difference to me, and do it within 3 words. Don't use the same terminology that all your competition is using. Stand out, explain it to me, simplify the language, which is something I struggle with personally. I've got a business partner that just constantly begging me. So I was like, you've got to use simpler language. I'm like, oh, man, I'm trying. But yes, all right. So that's kind of that's one of those things that, you can use things as far as, there's a couple different examples here as far as like fire resistant or soundproofing and that kind of stuff. So those kind of some quick examples there. All right. So hopefully you've caught all 3 of these. Now, the 3 of these, of course, is you can go in, you can identify, you look at your product niche, okay? Look at the search results or whatever page you're showing up on. Identify the commonalities that your competition is using among their images and among their titles, and figure out, how can I be opposite? How can I go complete contrast from what everybody else is doing, so that I can stand out from my competition, so that I can grab the eye of the shopper, compel them in, build their curiosity so that they come through to my product listing. And ultimately, then your product listing, that's when you start implementing all of your 5-second rule of what's in it for me. Each image, what's in it for me within 5 seconds. Each bullet point, what's in it for me in 5 seconds. I've got to be able to understand what's in it for me within 5 seconds. And if you're giving me a paragraph, I'm not going to read that in 5 seconds. So go back and you're going to look at your listings a whole new way on this one, I guarantee you. So then you're going to grab their attention with, try the color splash. You can certainly try some of the other things to differentiate your image, but try the color splash to be opposite, using a color that nobody else is using or rarely is being used. And then, of course, in the title, hook their interest with a unique benefit or feature, preferably a benefit, but sometimes it's a feature within, a couple of words, 2-3 words, right? In the first 75 characters for those mobile users, and then split test. Did I mention split test? I can guarantee you, because our track record shows this is going to increase your visibility. This is going to increase your engagement. This is going to increase conversion rates. It's going to reduce your ad costs. And of course, increased conversion rate is going to translate to increased profitability for your product line. Now, I used increased profitability so I can be even more aggressive. I started going after my competitors because I know I can get a higher engagement and a higher conversion rate. So I start hunting down my competition, but that's me. So, all right. So, okay, we may have lost AJ on this one here. Let me go ahead and pull up, let me go ahead and get the link here really quick, and I will pull it up. Actually, there it is right there. It is the grow.canopymanagement.com/start-now. Let me grab that link here.
I got it for you, Brian. Give me 2 seconds.
All right. It's up there somewhere. Ah, he's got it. Nice. Thanks, AJ. Appreciate that. Yeah. So, and I'll go ahead and put it out there. Oops, that one didn't do it. Yep, he's got it. Okay, so everybody should see a link there. Thank you, AJ. Appreciate that. To reach out to my team over at Canopy Management, it's grow.canopymanagement.com/start-now. That simply is just an invitation to you to say, you know what, complete a quick form. We'll have a conversation. We'll evaluate. Look, we could probably do something for you, or we cannot. Right? We're not going to play games. We're going to evaluate and say, here's where you think your strengths and your weaknesses are on the Amazon marketplace, certainly with your listing optimization and your ability to engage, grab the attention of the shopper, engage that shopper, and then ultimately increase your conversion rate. If we think that we can do something significant for you, because that's the way we work, we will tell you. We'll even throw on a price tag to say, we'd be willing to do it for this amount of money. If that makes business sense to you, cool. Let's do business. Let's work together. You can be yet another one of our success stories that we have over at Canopy Management. Questions. So I'm done. Hopefully you got all three of those. If I missed any of your questions, I am open for questions right now. If you want to throw those in there, I know we got a lot of people still on here. I'm glad that you stuck through it out. I hope that you're going to actually implement these, but start firing away some of those questions. What do you got for me? I'm going to open up my chat window a little bit here. JT, appreciate that. Thank you. Yeah. I've been doing this for I've been teaching in this space for like 6-7 years now, so I kind of got used to it. But this happens to be a topic that, as you can see, I'm a little bit passionate about, right? And I certainly and I'm fortunate to work with a phenomenal team in my agency, and so I know what we've got. You know, I know what competitive advantage that we can get for our clients, and so this one's a lot of fun for me because I love buyer psychology. I love trying to reverse engineer and outthink my competition. And I want the same for you. So obviously that's one of the reasons why I get out here, because I think there's a huge opportunity this year where so many of your competitors have fallen into the same trap of doing the same thing. And it's so easy for you to stand out, to pop from your competition. It's laughable. I mean, I go in there and I'll create videos and stuff where I just go in and I just use a search term from, brand analytics and just say, like, here's how I would dominate this niche. Certainly, if you got a niche like that and you want to throw me a search term through chat, put it in the comments of the video. I'll see if I can put it onto my schedule here and get it out there. It will be public. It's not just going to be a private one. But all right. So, Joan, okay. So I've got cosmetic serum and it's impossible to rank because PPC is expensive. What can I do? Yes, because you've got a lot of competition. One of the reasons that the PPC went so expensive this past year is because when the COVID restrictions were relaxed back in March of 2020, a lot of shoppers got offline. They got off their computer, they got out and they started going to stores, and the traffic dropped on Amazon. So what did the sellers do? They panicked. The Amazon sellers panicked and they said, well, what's the one lever that I know to pull? I'm going to do advertising. I'm going to do PPC. And so then cost per clicks jumped up, right? And I'm sure you probably observed that yourself, where your cost per clicks just skyrocketed this year. It's because of a market reaction by the sellers. Now, because COVID continues to come and go, restrictions get put in place, they get taken away. This is something that we're going to have to just kind of get used to, this kind of oscillation. But PPC was only one lever. This is your second lever that you should be putting in place. You should be investing heavily into how do you make your product listing stand out in the search results, grab the shopper, and then compel them in your product listing that this is the product that they're looking for and it solves their problems succinctly, without confusion, without doubt. This is the best deal. Work on increasing your conversion rates. It's going to make the biggest difference in the world. Now, in cosmetics, and trust me, because like from day one, I've been in cosmetics. Actually, my first consulting was for a buddy of mine who had a cosmetic line. They had 800 products on Amazon. That was my initiation into Amazon world, because I originally came from out of the eBay space and e-commerce shopping carts and everything. So I certainly can appreciate the frustration when it comes to this, because one of the biggest problems with cosmetics is the trust factor. You've got to have the social proof. You've got to maintain high number of review rating. It doesn't have to be a high quantity necessarily, but a high, if your product is slipping at all below 4.25 on the star ratings, you're going to start feeling it on your conversion rates for sure. Okay. And you got to reevaluate, are you positioning your product to the right consumer? And are you actually addressing the questions they have before they even know they had it? Those include things like having a video that has somebody, not an unboxing video, but somebody who actually takes it out, they're looking at it, they open up, the vial of the serum, whatever, and they apply it so that people understand, oh, okay, this is how you use it. Oh, okay, this is what I should expect. Okay, that was simple. It's a 30-second video. There's ways that you can further increase the stickiness or the success of your customer using your product through additional videos. I didn't even cover videos today. So that's another thing that you absolutely should be doing. Now, when it comes to your PPC, that is, of course, it is going to be a different discussion. You really want to revisit. There's two things that I would recommend on this. Well, three things. Obviously, I already talked about, what we talked about today, right? Standing out, increasing engagement, increasing conversion rate with a what's in it for me position, right? Conversation. Two is with the PPC, for now, I would focus in on which products, ad types, and targets, that could be keywords, products, categories, whatever the ad targets are. Continue to run ads on those that have an above average conversion rate among your own advertising, and maybe pull back or even stop the advertising on those that have a lower conversion rate. Okay. The third thing on this is a lot of work. I'm not going to lie. You literally need to go in and say, look, I created this product for a reason, to solve certain pain points. And you need to review the reviews of your own product. You need to review the reviews of your competitors. You need to be in those Instagram discussions, the hashtags, whatever, the discussions that talk about products like yours and what they like and what they don't like about them. And you need to address that in your product listing and in your videos, so that you are aligning, you're focusing tightly on, this is specifically why I created this product for the specific narrow product needs, the specific target audience, and here's the specific benefits that answers the question, what's in it for me? Doesn't solve all your problems. But when you're hyper competitive, if you're willing to outwork your competition, that is a great way of, you've got to do the work. You've got to listen to your target audience, and you need to speak their language based off of what you're hearing them say. All right. I was at a conference recently and they said, well, our own product has 135,000 reviews and all of our competition have at least 50,000 reviews. You expect us to review all, read all of those? I'm like, yes, yes, I do. There's tools out there where you can get word clouds and you can get sentiment analysis on reviews, right? Comment on this video if you're watching the replay, that we'll have up here in a few days. Comment on that video and I will tell you some resources that I would recommend on that. See what I did there? I got some engagement a few days from now. Let's see here. Any kind of, so I'm not gonna do any evaluations from what you sent here. So like Dershawn, if you could message me through Facebook or something, that would be great. So I can take a look at it outside of here. Some of these questions I kind of answered on the last one here. Okay, if I have 5 benefits of my product, how do you recommend using them in the listing? Well, keep in mind is that like there's certain elements, like half your audience is on a mobile device, right? Probably a smartphone, for instance. That smartphone is going to start out with a title that's probably only going to show the first 75 to 80 characters. So you've got to have something in that first 75 to 80 characters to hook their attention, right? That's why I'm saying keep it succinct, keep it 2 to 3 words to try to hook their attention on this. The bullet points, which are farther down on a mobile, typically, depending on the length of the bullet points, is only going to show the first 3. So you've really got to put all your effort into those first 3 bullet points and your first 3 images. Those are like the big pop, splash zone kind of ones. And usually I create in, like say in my bullet points, I'll do maybe 4 to 6 words of a benefit, hyphen, and then maybe 4 to 6 words of a feature that supports that benefit. And I'll focus on the first big 3 because I want to hook that shopper once they're in the listing so they stay. So they're nodding their head saying like they're talking my language. This is something that I want. I understand. I don't have to figure out what's in it for me. They're telling me what's in it for me. So your bullet points are succinct, quick to read within that 5 seconds. Your images are a field of bullet points and a bunch of text and everything. It's really simplified. Here's the visualization, maybe a little bit of text, 2 or 3 words. Here's the visualization of the benefit to me. Okay. That's going to trigger some of the kind of the emotional response of your shopper to say, it's like, okay, yeah, they know what my problem is. They actually know, why I'm out here to get this thing. Somebody's in images, bullet titles, description. Okay, still going through this one. So hold on 1 second here. Yeah, you're not repeating the same thing, right? Ideally, you're coming up with a couple of different benefits, right? Or you're speaking to them in different ways. But this is kind of where you need to go back. What I was recommending earlier is listen more closely to your target audience. Actually look at the reviews, get out on the social media where they might actually be having these kind of conversations, talking about different products and what they love and what they hate about them, and address it. Talk to them in that language. Just hand it to them. Don't make them work for it. Hand it to them as far as here's what you get by here's the benefit. Here's the end result you get of using my product. Okay. How to know if a new color we want to bring in. If you're talking about as far as like sourcing a whole new product with a new color, that's not what I was teaching today, just to be clear. I was simply just saying like you can use accent splashes in the main image in order to grab people's attention. I don't typically introduce a individual, like a new color of a product, unless I know that color is in demand because I went out and I listened to what are people asking about. They're not going to say, you're not going to post a question out in social media and say, hey, what would you like better? It doesn't work that way. People aren't going to come back and say, oh, well, if you did this, then it would be the perfect product and I could sell it to 1,000 friends. It doesn't happen. You've got to participate in the conversation, and without providing any kind of a link to your Amazon product page. You just have to be part of the conversation and get to know the community that's actually using the product. PickFu, you know, so we've used PickFu in and out. I think that's probably one of the tools we use. We use a bunch of different tools, processes, and everything. PickFu is all right. I would say that probably the Amazon experiments, the A/B split testing is probably the better way to go ultimately. But you can do a little bit of pre-research using things like PickFu. Sure, yeah. Yeah, big investments. You've got to, yeah, that's where you want to do the market research. Any kind of a big investment, you absolutely, any kind of new product launch, you've got to be in tune with what your customers are. It's not simply just as easy as what we used to be able to do a few years ago of simply just copying what is successful and it works. There is some truth that you can still do that, but you've got to figure out ahead of time, how am I going to stand out from my competition? That's the biggest thing. All right, let's see here. Let me go to the next question here. This will be recorded. This will be republished. It'll be sent back out to you as far as the replay in a few days here. We might even do it within a couple of days, but I would say within the first few days, we'll have the recording back out. I may actually even broadcast it, rebroadcast it out again too, but okay, so I think that's probably about it. The link to Canopy, we'll go ahead and put that back into the chat here, so that you have that. Philip, I see where you're raising a hand, but I don't see your question in the chat. So I don't. Yeah, Philip, if you can put your question in the chat, that would actually be better, because I'm not actually seeing. I saw a pop-up that said you were raising your hand, but I don't see anything else to it. So all right. Yeah, there's a link in there. Awesome. Thanks. So let's see, Peter here. In some categories, the first one or two bullet points are material composition, product care info. Would you delete those to move the benefit-driven bullet points higher? Absolutely. Without question, yes. Unless it is some kind of a terminology that is specifically being searched for, that if you don't have it right up front, then people are going to dismiss. Now, this could be where, like, for instance, if you've got, let me think of an example of this here. If people are commonly searching for, as in like it's a very popular search term, and they're searching for a specific feature, you probably want to have that right up front, maybe even your first 75 characters of your title, if it's that important, if it's that highly searched. But as far as specifications and that kind of stuff, I would bury that down. It's got to be available. You still have to answer the question, but absolutely lead with whatever the benefit is in 4 to 6 words, followed by maybe a 4 to 6 word feature that supports that specific benefit. And that could be, you know, material or a search, an industry search terminology. You know, is this product safe? You know, it's like, you know, safe for your family because it's, you know, UL94 fire resistant. That kind of an example where you can kind of mingle it into the succinct bullet point that you have. All right. Okay, cool. All right, so let me go and wrap it up here. I don't see any other questions. Hopefully I didn't miss any of these here. Glad that you made it today. Glad that we had such a high percentage of people staying with throughout the whole thing. Please, if you see the replay on this, make sure that you like and comment, because you got some value out of this. Definitely message me or put a comment in the videos that we post later on this week that tells me that you actually took action. That's going to be the most important reason why I do this, is knowing that you've taken action so that you can actually start taking over your product niche. Okay, I want to hear about it. All right. Thanks, everybody. This is Brian Johnson, and I will see you next time. Take care, and we'll talk soon.